pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you stay standing for 1 second? I got to move this mic a little bit. It's a little loud. Okay.
We want to take a moment of silence to recognize Brenda Pierce. Our solicitor, Michael Pierce, lost his wife last week. Thank you.
Sounds like my mic's a little too loud, but let's see. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Upper Chichester Township Board of Commissioners Caucus meeting, March the 3rd, 2022. Before we get to our presentations tonight, we do have to open up the floor for the citizens' comments. And since we are virtual, we'll open it up to anybody by telephone that's not able to attend the meeting during the time. They could dial 571-748-4021 and enter in 181-187-931#. The number again is 571-748-4021. Enter in 181-187-931#. To unmute your phone, dial *6. After unmuting, state your name and address and begin your comment, and you will be given 2 minutes to speak. We will leave the lines open for a few minutes. Take note that there's no telephone calls for citizens' comments. We will open up the floor on citizens' comments before we get to our meeting. We'll start to my left, but you're right. If there's anybody in this audience that has anything on the agenda they want to make comment to, please come to the podium, state your name and telephone number and address.
Good evening, everybody. John Thornton, 712 Dutton Street, Upper Chichester. Speaking on behalf of the Upper Chichester Fire Department, which I'm serving as fire chief. Department answered 77 calls for the month of February. We had 2 working fires for the month. One was at Willbrook Apartments, which was contained to the 3rd floor apartment and a bathroom. We had quick response. We had help from the police department and some residents. We had evacuating the building. The fire was quickly contained and put under control. We also assisted Claymont in the high-rise fire in Valley Run Towers, which was also quickly put under control. Under training, the department trained in the American Heart Association CPR class research. We had a hazmat operations research class. That was a 6-hour class. Quick on our social events. We have a fire department is having a designer bag bingo April 3rd, 12 to 4. That's being held at the Reliance Fire Hall on Mill Road. $40 will get you the game card, a lunch buffet, and a beverage. We'd love to have everybody's support. We're always looking for new members, as we are 100% volunteer. We're looking for anybody 14 years or older to join the department. Some things that came up, the price of gas is, we're worried about our volunteers responding to the station. I have concern with home response due to the rising price of gas. We try to staff the station as much as possible, but we still rely on a lot of folks to respond from home. I think it's going to place a burden on our home responders. Just an FYI, something to think about. Other than that, I'm done my report, and any questions?
Any questions, guys, ladies? Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Any other citizens on my left, your right? We'll go to my right and to the left. Note there's no other citizens' comments. We'll proceed on with our meeting and hand it over to Mr. Neary.
We'd like to consider a motion accepting the resignation of Sergeant Thomas McNichol from the Upper Chichester Township Police Department with a retirement date of March 5th, 2022. So moved.
Second.
On behalf of the Board of Commissioners, I'd like to thank Sergeant McNichol for the 29 years of service. As he pointed out to me in a phone call today, I was on the board when he was appointed in 1993. Yeah. And, you know, now I'm seeing him leave, and it's a bittersweet day, Tom, because it's been great to know you. It's been great to have you working for the township, and, you know, we appreciate everything you've done.
Can't let you go yet because we haven't had it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
The second motion is a recommendation to elevate Officer Anthony Grosso to full-time status effective March 7th, 2022.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
Thanks. Yeah.
Oh, he's
and welcome.
okay.
We know you've been part-time for a little while, but thank you very much for your service, and we look forward to a long career here in the department, and hopefully as long as Tom serves. I'll be 101. The last motion is consider a motion elevating Detective Christopher Jones to the position of Detective Sergeant in Upper Chichester Township Police Department effective March 7th, 2022. So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
And, you know, we're now going to swear Chris in. He's here, and we'll present him with his badges. And, you know he's done a good job so far, and we look forward to your continued professionalism.
It's all yours, Judge.
solemnly swear to obey and defend my duties for the Upper Chichester Police Department. Quality, integrity,
Matching shirts. I'm gonna come in. Good. Oh, hello. Hello. Yeah, it's good. It's not like it was earlier. That's better.
Testing.
Better.
Can you hear me? Testing. Turn mine back up. Hello, testing, testing, testing. There, oh, a little lower. Testing.
Have you been in
You're good. I'll just move it back a little. Yours is low.
Justin. Oh, yeah, I was back.
All righty. That was a nice presentation for all.
Okay.
We'll move along with our meeting and we'll start with our township professionals. And do you have a report for the engineer, George?
Give a brief.
You know
report.
what? We never did roll call yet.
Oh, yeah.
You don't do roll call?
All
That'd
right.
be nice.
Commissioner Bacco,
Here.
Commissioner Godioso,
Here.
Commissioner Bukowski,
Here.
Commissioner Neary,
Here.
Commissioner Whitaker,
Here.
myself, George Needles, and Paul Hughes present.
The engineer's report.
Yep, engineer's report. So there is a report in your binders from the engineer. Some of the items that are pressing in nature is that we have the escrow release number 10 for the Wawa development. This is a request for release of funds in the amount of $104,808.52. This release does not waive the obligations of the developer as outlined in the executed agreements. The release indicates items 100% complete, which are addressed on the incomplete punch list. There are substantial contingency funds to remediate. So there is still some issues with some ponding on McKay that need to be taken care of. However, there's substantial funds to be able to handle that. We went out for the thermoplastics pavement markings bid. There was one response, which is included in your packets, from Traffic Lines Incorporated out of Farmingdale, New Jersey, in the amount, total bid price in the amount of $55,920. Somerset Drainage Project, that project is out for bid currently. It was posted in the Delaware County Daily Times, and people can bid through the Penn Bid program at www.pennbid.net. There's no cost for prospective bidders. 900 Township Line Road. So this is actually something that we will need Lisa to kind of chime in on. So as you know, we have a land development application in for 900 Township Line Road. The applicant is asking for three separate subjects to be addressed. Whether or not the applicant is required to make any street improvements. They're stating at this point that their traffic study concludes that nothing is required. That is going to be worked out through the engineer and the traffic engineer. They believe that that they do need to reevaluate the traffic study. That's not really a concern of ours tonight. A decision from the fire marshal and township engineer, the proposed secondary emergency access is adequate. Again, that is fine. But the item that they're interested in that Lisa will need to give us some guidance on is Section 505.16.10 states that the preliminary plan shall include locations and delineation of wetlands based upon the appropriate regulatory requirements. The applicant has hired a professional and qualified wetlands geotechnical firm to delineate the wetlands and produce a report to support their findings. The township engineer is requesting a Army Corps of Engineer jurisdictional determination to double check the wetlands locations due to the fact that the wetlands are being impacted by this project. So Lisa can give you a little bit more detail, but the discussion that I had with her was that if the project wasn't impacting the wetlands, she'd be comfortable with the waiver. However, because it is impacting the wetlands, she thought that it would constitute needing the jurisdictional determination.
Before you go too far, George, sorry, got to keep adding this all up here. Is the concerns, if the Army engineers approve all this, that takes the liability out of us if they do it, or if they have the concerns, that would be the impact for the waiver, knowing that he can't do that, or any other.
Yeah. So basically, it's I don't know enough technical about the aspects of it to really advise. What was explained to me from Lisa was that this is a very common way to stake out everything and ensure that wetlands, everything is not being impacted to a portion where it could cause harm to the environment
Down the road.
Yeah.
Right. Now, hasn't this 900, is he still in the extension
He's an extension until May right now.
until May?
So he hasn't come in front of the planning commission yet. He was asking for some clarification of whether or not he would have to do this, kind of where we would be at. Lisa's recommendation is going to be to the board that my understanding from discussing her is she feels that this is warranted.
Mhm.
And he's looking for some guidance because that would be some additional work they have to get done before they'd be ready to come to the board.
Before it becomes, right. The other quick question for the thermoplastic. We only got one bid. I mean, are we going to be waiting for other bids still? Or, I mean, is it that critical that we have to, I mean, is this just an outline of what we propose to be done? Or is this is how they do it on per job? If we want to Beeson Avenue first, or we went over to, just say Trophy Drive and put something in there or whatever.
Yeah,
Is
so
it per,
this would be a culmination of all of the intersection, all of the line painting that would be thermoplastic throughout the township to get that accomplished. So 55,000, and then, depending on what they would give us on a unit price, which is listed there, we could, go forward with them to continue to do items as we go if something needs to be done. The reality is you do the thermoplastic, then you don't have to do it for quite some time.
Right, absolutely.
About 10 years of guarantee?
Yeah. So
Liquid
the
fuel
reason
line?
you only get one bid is it's kind of a specialty. There's not a
Right.
lot of people out there that do it.
Well, it's already coming up where they did it for Wawa also in their driveways, so.
Yeah, and like
it's-
that stuff's typically covered under warranty for this
Right.
stuff.
I think that was it. Okay, you could continue. Sorry, I just didn't want to get too far
No, it's all right.
ahead.
2366 Thomas Avenue. This has come before the board previously. The gentleman was asking for a waiver from the testing requirement for stormwater. He has gone through and tested the property and they could not get it to perk. So the waiver there's justification for the waiver. So the recommendation to the board would be that we entertain a motion to grant the waiver for this individual. That was the new home construction over on Thomas Avenue. The gentleman came in a couple months ago to talk about this.
Remember? I don't know him. He came in and was asking for a waiver ahead, so we said, no, do the testing.
Yeah, he didn't
Because
wanna-
either way, he would have to do it to prove that it wouldn't perk, so.
The 2022 road program. So Putt said he's got a couple more things he'd like to iron out
Okay.
with some of the commissioners, and he'll be contacting over the next tomorrow and then I believe on Monday. So my hope is to be able to get the cost estimate from Catania Engineering back over to everybody for prior to Thursday's meeting. And I would like to have an agenda item on there to authorize the engineer to bid it out, subject to us vetting what roads will get done. And then stormwater projects, I talked to Jim Putman today, and they've been working out this priority list where they've been putting basically together a list. On the right-hand side is the priorities of the jobs that they can do and what supplies they need and how far out the supply orders are and things like that. And then on the left-hand side is the projects that are beyond the scope is a little bit too large for them. So they're going to be presenting that to the board and asking to kind of move through this list. Does not include projects that have been previously been bid out or are bid out currently. So we previously authorized, I believe, the Tower Circle Basin, so Somerset, which is on here, and the Boothman Highlands, Peach Plum, whatever you want to call that. We have a couple different names for that project. So these are additional projects and things that we need to get done through the community. That's all I got.
One question, back to Somerset bid. If we're going like this,
I would have to check on that.
yeah, 'cause I was asking, wasn't sure.
Might be due to the cost, because it's, I think so. I think it would be, but I'll double check the bid.
Anybody have anything to note for George, for Lisa? If not, we'll go to the Solicitors Report. From Mike Pierce's office, we have Paul. Thank you.
I do not have any report. Usually my big mouth is enough, but I'll see you recording,
For the
so I
people.
apologize for that. So I started to say, good evening all, and I do not have any report at this time, given Mike's circumstances. He assured me that he would have one for you next week. I would ask your leave for him to submit it at that time.
Okay. Anybody have anything to be able to comment or be able to, any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And we will be back to George, Manager's Report.
All right, good evening. I'd just like to mention that I am not a licensed PE, so any of the information that I shared under the engineer's report is to be taken as hearsay. From the manager's report, the first item we have are some escrow resolutions. We have about 3 so far that have come in that have all been approved to be released. So I'll have the resolutions together for next week. No fire escrow releases this month, which has been the first time in a couple months. So moved most of them out. The second item is the Ogden Schoolhouse lease. So back in, I believe it was April 15th, 1997, the township entered into a 25-year lease with the Chichester School District for the property on Namans Creek Road, affectionately known as the Ogden Schoolhouse. Then in 2010, entered into a sublease agreement with the Historical Society for them to be the Upper Chichester Historical Society nonprofit organization to be able to use the building in the front. So that lease is set to expire in March 30th of 2022. Approximately 6 to 7 months ago, I discovered a copy of the lease, and we started to have a conversation with the school district. I believe it was communicated to us that the school district was interested in disposing of the property at a for a cost that they got an appraisal for. I have not seen the appraisal. So I guess we need to, I need some guidance as to what we need to do with this, because we're going to have to, at some point in the very near future, authorize the township solicitor to do something, and whether that be notify of a termination of the lease, or that we're not renewing the lease, notify that we are renewing the lease. They have not presented us with any kind of terms or anything like that. So I think there needs to be a conversation. However, we're coming up on a deadline because we don't have any meetings, I guess. And Paul, you could maybe give some guidance here. If something was worked out in the meantime, we could hold a vote and then ratify the vote at the board meeting if there was, if that did it that way. So I guess I'm just looking for some guidance.
Can we do a quick short-term extension? Can we get together and hire something out?
Sure.
30 or 90, you know what I mean?
6 months, I mean, realistically, I think you're looking at anything less than 6 months, it's probably impractical. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that that's a viable option if in fact that's what the world's interested in.
Well, would we need to vote on that tonight or next week for,
No, we'd have
We have enough-
agenda item next week. I guess we got to reach out to them in the meantime and see if they'd be amicable to that.
I think that would leave the doors open to be able to sit down and start talking about it, not just leave it hanging and not talk about it. 6 month extension that we're,
Usually the terms are dictated by the owner of the property,
Right.
not the leasing.
Well-
That's what
So you'll reach out to them and find out what they would like to
Yeah, we
do.
can tell them that that was what discussed and if they'd be interested.
everybody good?
Yeah, I'd just like to bring up some other points. I know there's been I think when me and Commissioner Neary went to the meeting with the school board, there were some comments made that there might be a desire for the township to purchase the property. So if that's the case, I had relayed back that, if we were to purchase the property, that we would do it with grant money. So if the board chooses to decide whether or not they would like to purchase the property, I think in that time period, that if there's an extension granted for a year, that we authorize George Needles or anybody from the township to actively search for a grant. But, that would only happen if the board would so choose to go down that avenue. And I also think that we should have a discussion with the Historical Society, see what impact it would have if the township would actually buy the property versus who would be able to use it, and if we put that on our master parks plan to develop a park back there in the 4th Ward. So there's no way we're going to be able to hash all these items out tonight. They're just some concerns that I'm bringing up to the board, and but the ball's in the school board's court, whether or not they want to grant us an extension for a year.
Paul, just a question. I mean, it's possible, there's already a sublease through the township for the historical thing. Even if the township was able to acquire the property, we could still sublease that partial to the Historical Society for another 50 years at $1 a year. All right, even though, and then that would be solely their responsibility, similar to what the sublease is here already that we have.
we would just have to determine that it doesn't impact, like if we're looking for grant money, I'll tell you, I've been searching for grant money. And one of the things that keeps coming up is that it's already a publicly owned open space historical location, right? So the grant money that I'm finding is for the preservation of, right? So like, it's not like we'd be saving this from a potential development because it's already owned by the public for the use of the public. So I would just caution that we just have to be careful that we don't find a grant application that would prevent us from then solely allowing the Historical Society to utilize the building, because that could put us in a jam. So we just have to be careful that we vet everything out. So it may be a situation where, like tax monies might be the best avenue through for purchase. However, I don't know how that would go from purchasing from a, because of the procurement laws, I don't know how we could purchase a property from a school district without there being if we can do that without a competitive process, unless it was given to us.
Can be given, and it requires court approval. School district to propose any. Not 100% sure. I haven't read them in a year.
Well, even if we go down that road, I would hope that the board would do its due diligence and get its own appraisal of the property also.
So you said that it could be.
Yes, ma'am.
So is there any stipulations regarding the purchase of? Would it still need to go through the court system if it was a purchase, a buy, like we purchased it from them? Would that still have to go through court because it is school district property? Maybe that's a question you can obviously talk to
Yeah,
Mike about,
I'll
so.
talk to Mike. As I said, I have not been down this road in many years. I know that I know that the courts are involved in the disposition of school district property. I do not recall the details of when and how, but yes, we'll speak about that and he'll have an answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Put all three parts.
Yeah.
McKay
Okay.
Schoolhouse was sold for $1.
Hmm?
I said the McKay Schoolhouse was sold for $1.
Sure was.
Okay, George.
Hey, how are you?
You good, George? Or you?
So the next item is we have the Heart and Soul Committee is interested in applying for an AARP grant application. The grant application would be for the purchase of street benches that would be located at various locations throughout the township. I think that they put together a pretty quick proposal as to what they'd want to do. And I think that this fits the mission of the Heart and Soul Committee. We would basically the township would be applying for the grant on their behalf since they're a committee of the township. But I think this would be a good project. We could purchase some of these benches, and then I was talking to Putt today. So we would sit down with the engineer, the planner, and Public Works and kind of let them talk to us about locations that they think might make sense, also with Brian from Rec, and determine, what will be the steps that need to be taken to be able to put a bench there. Could a bench go there? So for instance, if it's public property, we'd have to, work through that process with the public landowner. If it's in one of our parks, it's pretty simple. But I think this is it's a good grant for them to go through, gets them some practice writing grants. And if we are successful, I could see this being a benefit for the citizens of Upper Chichester. Recreation fee resolution. We were presented in February with some alterations to the fee schedule from recreation. So you have a resolution that outlines their increases to the rental fees that we charge for our facilities. Last month, we had a day where we were upgrading the generator here. So we all went down to the police department and went through the records room and pulled out some records for disposal. They've all been put to the side, and I have a resolution documenting those records so we can destroy them. We received last month, I'm sorry, we had a presentation from Nancy Templeton of CH Planning on the Boothman Town Center Plan. You have a resolution to consider that at this upcoming meeting. 406 Jefferson was a project that they had pulled the plug on. The owners decided they weren't going to go forward with the project, so they are seeking permit refund. I think that it makes sense in this situation. The next item, so I don't know if you've been following the markets, but the markets have been struggling recently due to a lot of different factors: looming interest rate hikes, inflation, and now the conflict, the war in Ukraine. Effectively, the stock market's on sale right now. So we have our policy for our pension plans is a 70-30 mix, where we are 70% in equities and 30% in bonds and cash. I'd like to explore the possibility of taking on a little bit more risk and possibly moving them to a 75-25 or an 80-20 mix. So basically, the hedge is, it's similar to what we did when we did our bond, that, you know, in the short run, we're going to probably most likely stay flat, right? But in the long run, since these equities are so cheap right now comparative to what, you know, historically in the market, that just moving that 10% over there of, you know, of a $55 million portfolio could have substantial impact over the life of the pension plan. And keep in mind, the pension plans operate in perpetuity. So we have to think beyond even our lives or anybody here's lives, that these are just going to continue to go and go and go. So it presents an opportunity that we could potentially, have a good upside. So twice in the past 2 years, we've actually taken advantage of opportunities similar to this. In 2020, the market went down, and we were able to fast track our contribution that year, and we hit the bottom of the market, just about the bottom of the market with our contribution, and our percentage at the end of the year was significantly higher than where we would have been if we had been putting the money in at other times. Last year, the bond money came in, and we were able to hold that into the market when in September, October, when it dropped. So we again bought on sale. So we had good returns. This is another opportunity. The difference between those situations and now is those situations were short-term bottoms where, it was a couple of days, so we had to make a quick movement. This is something where the market's most likely, in speaking to Mike Black, and the market's going to be dragging for the next month or so. So this could be an opportunity where if we do something like this and we get in at a low, that we could definitely have a better long-term return. If the board is not interested in the risk appetite on the pension plans, I would at least recommend we do it to the OPEB plan. The OPEB plan is slightly different because we're not taking money out of it every month like we are the pension plan to pay the pension dues. We carry the liability for all of the expenses for the healthcare throughout the year, and then we do one big transfer out.
It is the guy that handles our pensions. Is this part of his recommendation?
Well, I reached out to Mike because I regularly talk investments to Mike because I'm fascinated by the market and investments, and we talk about risk and returns and things like that. And we got on we've talked numerous times about what would it look like if we went to 80-20. Is that a smart decision to do? And we've gone back and forth a little bit about some of the times it just didn't make sense. The most recent conversation with Mike was that not a lot of his municipalities are doing this right now. Candidly, he said a lot of his municipalities are calling him panicking because the market's down. I don't call him panic when the market's down, because when the market's down, the market's on sale. So I called and said, is there an opportunity here to look at this? He said, look, we definitely can rebalance, which will help us take advantage of this, but we could also rebalance and change our allocation, which would also help take advantage of this.
So you're asking We're at 70-30 now
That's our current policy. So we would be changing our investment policy
to,
there's three examples in here.
All right.
There's an 80-20, a 75-25, and a 70, the 70-30 we're currently in.
Right.
You can see if you read the numbers in there, the risk that we take on it's not a substantial additional amount of risk. And it'd be kind of hard to get into the whole how they make up the risk, but basically it has to do with the standard deviations and your likelihood to meet within one standard deviation of your target there. So, Joe, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, Mike, Mr. Blackman also sent to us an analysis. I think it was his vice president. Sent us an analysis saying that generally when they have international incidents like this, there is a drag on the market in the beginning, but within a year of reaching its bottom, it's returned most of that loss, unless, of course, you bought at somewhere near the bottom, in which case you gotten an 8 to 10% gain. And historically, I remember one time a guy making a presentation saying, well, they say the market averages 8% over 100 years. Well, who's around for 100 years? But this pension plan could be around for 100 years. So historically, we could probably get 8%. And I think that I personally am comfortable with going with 80-20, but I tend to be slightly more aggressive. Mike, full disclosure here, Mike, I invest with Mike, and he had talked me into lessening my allocation to less than 80-20 when I started with him, because that was at 62 or 63,
but if you might make 100, you should have went
Well,
80.
And he's done very well, both for the township and personally for me. I personally, I think 80-20 is fair, but if the board is not comfortable with that, I'd really recommend the 75-25. I think we can afford to move some of these funds, and if that isn't comfortable, then at least with the OPEB.
Well, I do agree. I think it's going to be long-term, that this market is not going to happen overnight, where before it was short-term, especially what's going over there in Ukraine and everything. But when do we have to, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I'm a little shaky with the 80. I like the 75 because there's an opportunity right now, but we did 75, why not try the 80? So it's up to the other board members, but I'm not here to gamble with anybody's money. Trust me, we got to where we are here now and we did a great job. But like Joe's saying, Mr. Neary, this fund's going to be here forever. We're not. So we want to try to make the best of it. And I think it looks bad now, but within a year and a half to 2 years, it could be a little better for us. So.
Yeah, and this is where I tend to disagree with Mike's risk models. The risk models are looking at it at a short-term basis. So I always look at this as a long-term. Everything's a long-term investment, right? So right now, he reran the models for us, and our 70-30 model, the expected return for the year would be 5.64. Well, our assumed interest rate is 6.5. So we're going to miss, right? So we're going to miss, but we returned, I believe it was 12% last year, a little over 12% last year, adjusted for inflation. So that basically we can, if we get zero this year, we still are good, right? But we'd like to be great. The expected return on the 80-20 would be 6.19%. And the expected return on a 75-25 is 5.92%. Now, keep in mind, I know these are small numbers, but when you're working off of $55 million, every percentage is it's benefits for 5 years, so it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Similar to Everett Dirksen saying years ago, you throw $1 million here and $1 million there, so eventually it's a lot of money.
Now-
$1 million
Yeah.
worth of money.
Well, yes, today.
So that's like three, what was that, 3 percentage points difference between the 75 and the 80?
Right, they're under 1%.
I think you said 619 and 582.
592.
592.
592.
592.
564 is 70.
Yeah, so less than that.
Okay,
What-
yeah, you might as well do 80-20.
When we get back to the norm, but we don't know what the norm is, do you reduce it back to the conservative end again, 70-30? Is that the
Yeah,
idea?
so the way that so when we did that bond, the way that we set this up is that eventually you'll be risk-free. So as the pension plan produces, right, it's because of the amount of money that's in there. Like, so for instance, right now, after this year, we ended up being funded at 103% now. So our target was 100. It was really 99.9, but we beat, so we're like 103, right? So basically what happens is, as long as you continue to beat, which is not going to happen every cycle, right? But it will happen every other cycle, every 3 cycles. You'll beat on a pretty regular basis. Every time you beat, you're going to have to do one of 3 things. You're either going to have to put less money into the plan, so you reduce your normal costs, right? So right now our normal costs are covered by the MMO from the state aid from the state, right? And from the contribution given in by the police officers. So you either need to reduce that, reduce your risk, or reduce your interest rate. So we're trying to hit 6.5 right now, right? If we beat, then the best plausible situation for next time we have an actual study would be to reduce our assumed interest rate to 6%, right? So we won't see the effect, but the cost of the plan will go up. But you won't see it because you'll have an offset because you beat, right?
Right.
So you'll keep doing that until your interest rate is so low that you then say, okay, well, our risk needs to go down too. So, if we only need to produce a 4% return on our plan, there's no reason you'd be in an 80-20 at that point. You'd be in a 60-40. So eventually what's going to happen is your assumed interest rate is going to be like 0.01. Your risk is going to be, we only need to be in bonds or candidly, maybe even CDs and bank accounts at some point. And then your contribution would go in.
I don't see CDs anymore, like coming back like that, but no, you're right. I mean, and that's why we have Mike, for him to guide that. I mean, I'm good with some of the numbers. It's,
I like to stick with Mike's recommendations because everything he's done for us so far, been pretty good.
oh yeah, it's just,
I'll reach out to him tomorrow and just say, Mike, give me like a little synopsis of, what you think the true benefits are going to be and what would be the risk, what the real risk would be here potentially. So that you can see, like, for instance, with any of the plan, there's a risk that we wouldn't hit for the year.
oh yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that would be something that would slightly increase the probability of that happening.
Could he come in and talk to us?
Oh yeah, I can have him come in and do that.
If there's no objection, I would,
No, I like that.
I like for him to come in and
Like I
talk.
said, we come well by him, so.
Yeah, I'll talk to him about coming in for the next meeting and I'll get something from him in advance. The next item I have is the statewide local share assessment gaming grant. We'd like to apply to this grant for a street sweeper / vac truck. You have a copy of the vac truck and street sweeper thing that we'd like to get. This is many years ago, the representatives used to give out grants for like things that you needed. And that went away. And when that went away in Delaware County, it was because the gaming monies in Delaware County went to the county and to the city of Chester. So what the state has recently done due to online gambling is opened up this grant program now to the statewide, not just municipalities that are not just counties that had chosen not to take that as revenue in. So we have an opportunity now to get some money that we have not gotten in the past. It will fund 100% of projects or purchases when you can justify that the project or purpose is for the betterment of the community. We believe a street sweeper / vac truck will be an absolute betterment for the community. It will help us comply with our MS4 requirements because we'll be able to pick up the suspended solids that are out on the streets. We'll be able to get into the stormwater drains and get them cleaned out. We are in the process of trying to revitalize our town center, and one of the easiest ways that you can do that is keeping it clean and nice, and this will give us an opportunity to do that. Public Works would like to use this grant, apply for this grant. I think it's a good grant, and I think this is a good piece of equipment for the township to own.
I was at this place today, transfer.
Were you?
They got about 20 of them sitting there.
Yeah, they're cool. We demoed one of them here.
That truck eliminates men from climbing down storm sewers also.
So
It drops a tube in and does it all.
is it a street sweeper or is it a vacuum
It's both.
truck
Combination.
Yeah,
combination?
yeah, it's a combo. So it's a street sweeper. So the hopper is there, and it has it's full street sweeping capabilities.
Say that twice.
Yeah, right. And then it's got a hydraulic hose, like Joe said, that can go. I think it goes like 8 feet down into these stormwater
Well, you can
drains.
get extensions.
Yeah.
They can go 20, 30 feet. You can buy extra extensions.
So it's definitely, it would be a good piece of equipment for us to own.
I think-
This is a bigger truck than we have now. The one we have now, basically for doing parking.
Yeah, we have a parking lot sweeper. This is for streets. This is
We'll sell it to you cheap.
Well, this is, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying when the residents
Especially if
here,
we get a grant.
I'm just saying when the residents here that we have a street sweeper, the expectation is we're going to be out there sweeping the streets.
yeah. That,
So it's, I just think we need to talk about, the expectations of it, how we're going to use it. And if we, decide to do a street, the cars are going to be in the way. So we got to move cars and stuff like that. So, it's something that we need to work with the residents along with.
yeah, absolutely.
I
Primarily,
don't think it's a bad idea.
with the way I see them utilizing this, it would be out on the main roads. So you'd be hitting like Chichester Avenue, Larkin Road, some of the bigger roads. And then like on a need basis, if we see that there's an area where it's becoming a problem, we'd hit a side road with that.
You just put notices out.
Yeah.
Such and such a date,
Can we-
such and such a time.
Can we get some refund money for cleaning the state roads?
Good luck.
Don't hold your breath. There was some emails going around about like a vehicle for the fire marshal. So I'm just looking for some clarification if I should be looking for a vehicle or what I should be doing here.
Yeah, I'd like to open that up tonight. What are we doing?
The fire marshal
The
vehicle?
fire marshal vehicle. I sent the email out. One vehicle's up for sale, it's already equipped. We got, Kelly Blue, no, Kelly Blue Book would not have the emergency.
No, and is there things in it already?
There's equipment that's modified for the chief's vehicle, right? That doesn't come from the factory. As if you buy a car, your power windows, aftermarket, everything they put in addition.
Right. Is all that coming with it?
Yes.
Right. So that's going to increase the value
Oh,
that the basic Kelly book would already be. Do we
Yes.
have that information?
we could get that. I
Yeah, well,
mean,
in that one
I
email,
thought you
you
did.
said, I think it was like over 40, right? The value.
Yeah, the one email was $40,000. A lot of them were high mileage, 69,000 to 102,000 miles on them. This one has 14.
So I think that's where
wow.
we're going to end up with the problem if we were to purchase it. Because, purchasing a piece of equipment that's over $40,000 we wouldn't be like competitively bidding it, or we wouldn't, and they're not co-stars, we'd be buying it directly from the fire company.
They
Would-
bought it through CoStar.
Now, so I don't know how that purchase works. So I just know looking at the purchasing laws, I would believe that if we were buying something that expensive, we would have to purchase it directly from a CoStar's provider or some kind of
Whatever,
KPN or something that we are in.
you might want to look at their Relief Association owns it technically. because that's how they bought it, out of the relief money.
Hmm.
So it was a down payment on it, and then they paid the payments, it's paid off, and they've had it for a while, so you can buy something through, out of the Relief Association money, but money has to go back to their Relief Association money. So how that works with, whether it's CoStar or not, I mean, I know they bid it as CoStar. How it becomes technical with us buying it because we buy CoStar, and like George was saying, it's
And they want to sell it for $40,000?
30.
Oh, 30. 30, George.
The question is it over-equipped for the fire
There
marshal?
might be a couple little things that they take out, that's all, but he has his own laptop that would be already there that the township owns. Anything radio-wise would be, he already has, or I don't know if there's anything overabundance that the chief would have that the fire marshal would have. It's a command vehicle, he would probably take the command vehicle back panel part out for his equipment, for the gear. Other than that, I don't have any answers on that part. I mean, it's not like Dave Holland had a plain SUV with the radio, his lights, and he made his own boxes for all of his equipment, and his gear was in the backside.
Mhm.
They equipped it as in a command vehicle, which is some of the
Okay.
stuff would be in the back. They would remove because we wouldn't use it, and that would entitle him to be, or whom, to put their gear in the back of the truck.
Right. So I think from a legal standpoint, we need to find out
You
if
can
we
bring it
can,
up for
how we
everybody, yeah.
can. So we probably want to, again, refer to Mike to that, or to get some more clarity on how we would purchase that.
Whatever truck we buy, this one or a new one, will be specifically for the
Fire
fire
marshal.
marshal. not the fire marshal, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
It's our vehicle. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause we sold the other one.
when we brought it up with Mike previously, he had stated that he believed that we would have to, like, if we could purchase it if they had put it out to some, like if they were doing it competitively. So for instance, if they put it on a bidding website, we could bid on it. Because that would be a competitive process that we'd be participating in.
But do we need to do that?
Well, we would,
Yeah,
I
That's what
mean,
we need to find out, because it's an entity that's in this statute that
right,
we
and they're trying to,
support.
Yeah, I got it.
And fund.
unfortunately,
Well,
I don't think, I mean, unfortunately, the way the laws are written, I don't, it's that there's very specific ways that we can buy
Right.
when things go over certain amounts of monies. So I mean, if they were selling the vehicle for under $12,000,
Well, then you don't
oh,
bid it out.
that amount, yeah.
Well, yeah, but I
Right.
thought that's up higher now, but it's not as high as
What's
30.
Dave's old truck? What do we do
Who?
with that?
Who?
we sold that
They
last
sold
year.
that.
We got rid of it?
So,
So you weren't,
I know I responded to the email that I was not in favor of it. I don't know if anybody saw that. I requested an executive session to discuss the fire marshal's duties and expectations. So, you know, I would still like to have one. Maybe we can talk about this at our planning session that's coming up. But, yeah, I like to vet that out before I would agree.
Well, no matter what we do, that person's going to need a vehicle, no matter what, whomever down the road, so. All right,
The next item I have is, I've been speaking about this at the past couple of meetings. I've been working with the Delaware County Redevelopment Authority on a pilot program exploring ways to assist in vacant homes, taking vacant homes and putting them back to productive use. The reason I'm bringing it up is I'm expecting a letter from the Commerce Department and the Redevelopment Authority kind of explaining what the role is. But we're talking about possibly utilizing Act 135 conservatorship for a property in the Linwood Heights neighborhood. And if we were to do that, we would need to be the petitioner. The redevelopment authority would be handling all of the work that goes into this. Basically, what would happen is we do what legwork I'm already doing, which is compiling all the code violations, lists of the vacant properties. I'm working with the property maintenance department to get that all together, getting that information over to their lawyers, discussing that. But we would end up being a role in this. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware and kind of where we're at with it.
Do paperwork on that?
Yeah, I present No, there's nothing there. I'm getting everything from the county. I don't know if you remember years ago, we had a gentleman came in, gave us a presentation on Act 135 conservatorship program.
Right.
So basically, they'd be doing they're doing that program now. They'd be doing that program. But there's the one step, which is the petitioner who petitions the court to say that this property is a nuisance property in the community and needs to be addressed.
Right.
So as more stuff comes out with that, I'll be giving that out. They're also, exploring some other ideas, banks, things like that, that we're going to try to be working with them as a way to kind of help us with some of these long-term vacant properties that we've had in the township.
And this is all Delaware County redevelopment program?
Yeah, we're doing everything through the redevelopment authority. It's like the extension of that Linwood Heights stuff that we did with them previously. Is everybody okay with March 19th for the strategic planning session? Or
We do have a couple other things going on up here that day. You have the recycling that day, and the library is going to be setting up their.
Was the other day March 12th? Is it March 12th good for everybody?
Mm-mm.
I didn't think it was good for everybody.
Yeah, it's
sorry.
not good for
Well,
me.
yeah, the 2 days we had worked out so far were March 12th and 19th.
Yeah, the 19th works better for me.
Yeah. Because I start my new schedule on the 21st and then squeezing everything beforehand. So the 12th would be a little iffy.
I'll come up the 19th. It's just.
Yeah, I don't care.
There's going to be people
Scheduled
here.
for the 19th, and then
How early are we going?
We could start as early as you'd like. My kids are up at 5, so.
Good luck. Start with that one.
No. Yeah, earlier, so we're not here all day, please.
8 o'clock, I guess, is that?
8 o'clock? All right, and we'll do it across the hall. I'll set up the main area so we can do it in there. We've received a repository request for Thomas Avenue, for a property on Thomas Avenue. The individual is interested in possibly building there. It's a former resident of Twin Oaks that would like to return. So I'll get more information on this, but I think that this would be one of those situations where this would be a good thing to do this with the repository property. And then the township telephone system. So this is kind of an FYI. We received notification from Windstream, our phone provider, about a week ago that they'll no longer be able to provide us phone services by the end of the month due to our antiquated copper wire system that exists throughout the township that feeds this building. So we need to move pretty rapidly on a new phone system. This was one of the projects we were looking at previously about doing like a voice over internet protocol phone system. So right now, Ray, Chris Jones, and Andrew are exploring a bunch of different options for potential phone systems of how we can continue to operate.
Save your tin
I have
cans.
one
We
for
might
you.
need 'em.
Why don't you mind?
I think MS Teams might be an option.
Send
MS
it.
Teams.
Yeah, I'll send it to you right now.
I think MS Teams has a way that you can assign a phone number to.
Yeah, so we're exploring a bunch of different options. I mean, ideally, so the pain points with the current system are anytime the internet goes out, which again is rather frequently because we have an antiquated, lines and the entire system has to go down. The phone system goes down. It's a pain to get back up. There's better ways now to do this so that there's less interruption. And we were even looking at the total cost and saying, hey, what would it cost to go to cellular with ghost phones so that, you'd call into this ghost number, which would be our township number, and it could actually funnel to cell phones. May actually be cheaper for us in the long run to get cell phones with hotspots and just use the internet as a backup internet here. There's lots of different options. So they're going through right now and they're kind of exploring all these different options to say, what is the best plausible way for us to get phone service here and without interruption. And the only other item I have is we received we have an individual who purchased a property, used to be known as the Mad Greek. And he is bringing his Mexican restaurant to Upper Chichester. And we had one of our license and inspections meetings with him to discuss the kind of the steps in the project. And during the meeting, he indicated that he really would like to redo the kitchen. so that it is more functional for him to be able to operate his business. During that time period, though, he really would like to be up and running in some fashion there. So not going to be feasible to be up and running in the building. However, he does own food trucks, and based off of our food truck ordinance, he would be okay to put a food truck in his parking lot. So, excuse me. The issue is that the cost for the annual food truck license. So based off of our law, he would be required to acquire a annual food truck license for that food truck. However, the reason and the intent of that law was to really get away from to level the playing field between restaurants who are paying taxes, who have a physical structure, and these food trucks, which have the ability to park on a public street and circumvent the real estate taxes. So I think this would be a circumstance where the board should consider waiving that, and this gentleman is seeking a waiver from the board there.
This is, my understanding, he has two food trucks now, correct?
Correct, and they have
And-
permanent locations.
Right, so he's working on the third food truck.
Correct.
So I just want to let the board know that there's a possibility of him getting done the renovations before he brings his third food truck in.
Correct.
So I just don't want it to be perceived that that we're holding anything up and that we didn't allow him to come in.
Correct. It would be on him to be able to.
How many, he only wants one truck there, though, right?
Yeah.
At
So,
the
so
location.
my understanding is he has two. So the way his business, I don't know much about his business model. Just a quick conversation. He has dedicated locations in the state of Delaware that his trucks live at 24/7, and he operates out of on a regular basis. He is looking to open up a restaurant. That location became available. He thinks it's a good location for what he's trying to do. He wants to be part of the Boothman Town Center. He wants to kind of help, be in that kind of environment of an up and coming community. He is getting a food truck currently built that has another dedicated location to go to. But ideally, he said he would like to start to try to build a following here while he's working on the building.
Well, it's temporary, 30 or 60 days, and then once the renovation.
Absolutely. We would probably give him like a 90-day window with the contingency that once the building is CO'd, he would have to remove it.
As long as we put a timetable on it, so they don't drag his feet, just keep using the truck.
I don't think he wants to do that because my understanding, he bought the building. So he's already did the transfer.
Protect our-
Oh, yes, no doubt. You don't know. And he is doing some improvements in the restaurant on, my mistake, for the ceiling because of the apartment upstairs. So there's some other code issues that he's trying to fix out. The only thing I was talking to George about, since it is right over there in my ward there, that we would still have Michelle inspect the truck before he opens up.
Sure.
Just for that, so nobody says we didn't do it, and I'm okay with the waiver. And I think it's a good thing. It's a young guy. I've heard a couple people say they've been down to his place in Delaware, and he's very filling. So I guess I have to learn to eat Mexican. But I'm good with it, so it's up to you guys. So,
The agenda for next week then.
okay.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Anything to be brought to the attention to the manager? We'll move along to our since Ms. Catania is here, is there any,
Maybe Lisa can answer my question.
there you go.
The Somerset, job, I think prevailing wage required. For sure, it's not. Okay. Yeah. Somebody that was going to do the job that didn't know that. All right.
Okay, we'll move along to the commissioners. Start out with Madam Vice Chairman Nicole Whitaker.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. The Historical Society, we talked briefly about that. We'll wait to get some additional information regarding the property. The library is also having a designer bag bingo on sometime this month, March 19th. Thank you, March 19th, and it's going to be at the is it here at the gym in the field house? Okay, so I know we were going back and forth with location, so it's going to be here. on Saturday, March the 19th. If you need tickets, please visit the library. They're also having a crab feast. The bingo starts at 6 o'clock. I'm just putting this information out there extra early, but tickets are selling out. So the crab feast is going to be August the 7th at the ballroom at Bethel from 1 to 4. And those tickets are $60 a person. See, recreation. So George briefly touched on recreation and fee schedule, and we discussed this last month as well. So the community center on 452 currently the non-resident rate is $500. We're asking for an increase up to $650. The resident rate is $400, and the increase will be $450. So $50 increase. And the nonprofits, the children's groups, community groups currently pay $100. We're requesting that be increased to $150. And that rate for nonprofits is not available on weekends. That's our busy time. And the rental is for the entire day. So they're not subjected to a 4 or 5 hour window. They actually have the entire day to rent it. And the field house, full day without concession, we're asking for the increase to go up to $950. The full day with concession is currently $950. The increase will be $1,150. Half day, it's currently $400, and proposing the $500 for half day. The nonprofit rate would stay the same. The hourly rate right now per court is $45. Increase that by $5 to $50. The municipal fields, no increase. And the seasonals, spring and summer seasonal rentals would increase to $650 per team. Also, the Delaware County seniors are requesting using they're hosting a tournament, a pickleball tournament on June 13th and 14th from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. They will have 10 pickleball courts operating at one time. The basketball courts and tracks will be closed for those 2 days to the public. The middle school parents would like to host the 8th grade formal here at the rec center on May 20th. They have been advised that they can't wear like pointy heel shoes for the formal. What is it? This event is they usually have it, but they haven't had one since COVID. So they're proposing to have it here so they can space out. And the time would be from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. We're requesting to not charge them to use the facility. Okay, and then Heart and Soul, George, I do think that's a good grant, the ARP grant. So I'm in support of doing that, having them apply for it under the township's name. I think that will be good, especially once we identify the locations for the benches. And then finally, I forgot to tell George, but I will have my sewer authority appointment next week. So I would ask that you put that on the agenda. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Anything to be brought to the attention of Commissioner Whitaker?
Can we know the name tonight or? we gotta-
Yep, Derek Austin, he's on there now.
Oh, Derek, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that he wanted to stay on there. We've been like playing phone tag, so.
All right, we'll go to Commissioner Giovanni.
Thanks, sir. The regular financial statements will be available next week. The financial statements for the two defined benefit pension plans are in your books this evening. One thing I wanted to mention on the library, I did during our meeting ask them to look again at the assessed valuation that they're declaring in their statement, because there's some controversy, not controversy, but there's need some clarification.
I
because
do
further
too.
Down the road,
Mhm.
they may need to substantiate that number. and
Correct.
You want to be dead on with that. So, but I did have that added to the minutes. The police civil service test, in your package is the proposed itinerary or routine for when we will be doing this. It will start being advertised this next weekend, the 13th and 20th. And then the whole program is laid out there. And hopefully we'll be able to bring some new part-time officers in now that we have completely depleted our part-timers. The other issue I wanted to bring up is the firefighter incentive proposal. I mean, there is still some clarification that we need to do as a committee, but I did send this to everybody. I did hear back from Ed, and I would appreciate any comments you have. There are other issues we have to resolve. We have to find out if we can do it this way. You know, we'll have to speak to the solicitor. Probably, I don't see any problem with it relative to what they're doing out in Radnor. I believe it is, but where they're giving them straight donations, or not donations, incentives. This is a proposal. It's not written in stone. I'd like everybody's input because I think it's a fair way to do it. The biggest issue that people in the past have said, you know, it's an incentive and you give them EIT or you give them real estate rebates. Some of the people don't live here and they're coming in. We think they should be included. Some people don't have, you know, they may rent. They may live outside town, as I indicated. Some people, some of the juniors obviously may not have jobs. So the incentive to them is, once again, we're trying to find a broad-based incentive program. And again, I've only shared it with the 5 commissioners. I would prefer that it stay within the 5 commissioners until we clearly have a path forward, because if everybody's opposed to this, or the board opposes it, then there's no use going forward. So please respond in the next week or two if you could. I know if we could, I believe it's a meeting March 16th, that if, you know, I would like to at least be able to go to that meeting and say, we are working on this, that we are moving ahead with this proposal, and here are some of the aspects of it. That's what we have with the committee. And I want to thank Butch Minner and Art Gorga, who assisted with, you know, keeping me in line here.
I agree. I think we need to offer some incentives, or we're going to be paying full-time firemen soon. We better offer something.
Yeah, I mean, I sent mine in already. Like I said, just try to keep it in within the board. I'm glad, thank you, Butch. Thank you, Art. I know this is something we've been actually budgeting for the last few years and haven't really come up with something. I think this is the fairest way to do it. I thank Mr. Neary too, because of thinking outside of the box, and I threw it in there and I see it on the new one here. It includes everybody. What the chief said tonight, gasoline's $4 a gallon across the street. These guys are sucking up gas. Every little bit helps. So like Joe was saying, I don't own a home. I rent. I live with my mom and dad. They're not going to get it. But if we could keep, I got 5 juniors and they get something out of it, and they don't have a job, and this gives them pennies. It's not a whole lot, people. It isn't. It beats $1 million having a foot down the road when you have to start paying people. So if I could keep 2 to 3 juniors when they turn 18, that's more people that the firemen have. And it's the executive side, administration side, everybody. So you can't get any fairer than this. And it's missing a lot of zeros if we had to go the other way. So, but read it over, try to get it to them. So I think their meeting the 16th is the full fire companies, all 3 of them. Knowing that we're doing something, because I tell you right now, if we do propose this for now, there's no reason why they can't get it for 2021.
Right.
So that's all I have to say with it. I'm good with it. Anything else to be brought to the attention of Commissioner Neary? If not, we will go to Commissioner Michael Guardioso.
Thank you, sir. really not too much to report on. All my reports will be on file next week. You can see the list of applications under my report. We have several extensions that were granted. Really not too much going on with planning at this moment in time. I believe they had the, as we affectionately call the goat farm application came to the planning board last week. So if anybody has any questions about that, I'd be more than happy to answer it. Zoning 503 Anna Court, the variance was denied, and item B under my zoning report 3709 Chichester Avenue is an indefinite extension still. I did submit my street list to the highway department. I drove around with Jim Putman, so I have several streets. Per the suggestion of Mr. Putman, there's a handicap sidewalk on the corner of Mill and Chai that he would like to do under the road program. So I listed that within my board. So hopefully we will get that done. It'll complete the four corners if the board chooses to do it. One other thing I'd like to bring up, it's not on my report, and I've been having residents talk to me on Peach Street about parking issues, and I talked to Mr. Needles about it. In the near future, I'd like to hold a town hall meeting with the people living on Peach Street, like to send a letter out and just hear their concerns, and maybe propose the idea of having parking on one side of the street. I think this will allow more access for emergency vehicles to drive through. I also like to use it as a test street for the adjacent streets in the area. If it's successful there, hopefully we can look into improving the access on the other adjacent streets as well. That's all I have for tonight. If anybody has any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them.
One quick thing for Peach Street. That's at the end of the creek there. There's a playground, right?
I believe so, yes.
Is there enough room is there parking for when they go to that playground, or is it just for the residents that walk there from both sides?
No, there's really no designated parking for residents to park there. Plus, if I live at the top of the
You're not
street, I'm not
right.
gonna walk all the way. I'm not gonna drive down to the end to park there. But that's a possibility for the lower end
Right,
of Peach Street.
just a small area for community parking
Yeah.
or whatever. Something while you're looking at the whole road.
But I know it's something that I've talked to the residents about, and with everything that's been going on for the past 2 years, it's kind of been put on the back burner, and hopefully things are starting to open up again soon, and I'd like to put that on my agenda for this year to get done.
Any other questions for Commissioner? Go to yourself.
I do. I received an email regarding the goat farm, and the email said, have the commissioners already made up their minds of what they want to do with it? So I think it's important that we talk about it at the public meeting, let people know that it's not our property,
Correct.
and so I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so
Okay, yeah, because I was really kind of.
George, we're probably going to say the same thing, so if you want to address it.
So at the planning commission the other night, there was a question that was presented, and I think that the answer got misconstrued. So the planning commission was stating that the plan was a by right plan, meaning that it did not require zoning approval or zoning change, that it fit the zoning of the property. And when that was stated, then that was the individual who heard that stated back, oh, so the board has approved this. So I think it's just that misconception of what the different avenues are. So the plan has not been approved. The plan is going through the approval process, but they did submit a by right plan, meaning that at some time previously a zoning law was adopted, and that zoning law allows for that to happen at that property.
Just to echo George, is like, I think people get confused when an individual buys a piece of property, they're permitted by right to do certain things on it. And it's the township's responsibility to make sure that they're following the guidelines within that certain zoned area. So, we haven't approved anything yet. It's going through the planning board. It's being reviewed. It's being reviewed whether or not it's meeting our SALDO ordinances. So, and nothing has come before the Board of Commissioners to say, this is it, this particular structure is going onto the property. That has not happened yet. So nothing has been approved by the Board of Commissioners.
How are we making out with the appraisal? Did we approved to get it appraised? Have we started the process?
But we also, I think, we also can't dictate what the buyer does with their property. I think that is the
Right.
point. We cannot tell them what they can do with their property. And I think that's the misconception. They think that, oh, you want, like,
The only thing we could tell them is, as a residential area, you cannot put a commercial building on it. I mean,
Right.
those are the type of things that we can prevent. But
right.
if they're zoned properly and they're building by right, then it's hard. I mean, you are correct.
Anything else for Commissioner Gaudioso? Now we'll move on to Commissioner Joe Biacco.
Thank you. I'll have more to report from highway sanitation and sewer for next week. I already have the sewer report out and pass the email on to you guys, but I have two things I would like to discuss now. Some questions have arisen about this domestic partnership health insurance. I know there's some things we're gonna have to look into. We'd be willing to offer it. We have several people that are affected. I don't know the laws, but I understand some of the arguments for the people. If I put it out there, how does everybody else feel about it?
George, and Paul may be able to answer this question. Doesn't the insurance company have the guidelines of what their domestic partnership consists of? I mean,
So what the insurance company relayed back to us is that in Pennsylvania, due to the laws allowing for same-sex marriage, that the standard plans include like a dependent being a spouse and or a child, right? So what they said was if the township wanted to offer benefits to anyone outside of that purview of the of marriage and children, that they would have to, that would be something that they would have to set the policy on as to who they'd be giving insurance to. And they would have to determine, because there are some tax implications for people to receive benefits in this manner too. So
is
that's,
that our policy or the federal government's policy? If the federal government, they're the ones that implement it to say, hey, the insurance companies now have to do the domestic partners. Because I know we got that letter for where I work. It's we have to cover you, period. I don't know what their guidelines are. I thought I had it in my policy to be able to give it. I think Paul, I think we need to find by Gallagher. You're trying to say that it's board's policy if we go to different direction, if it's not the same sex, if it's husband and wife that aren't married but been together for so long. Is there any policies? Do we adopt a policy or does the government already have that in place? It's my understanding that Gallagher did have something of a guideline of people that are together but not married, but if they could prove they've been with each other for so long and the bills are all being paid together, and I don't know how many years it is, but I don't know if it's their guideline or we have, as commissioners, have to adopt that policy. That's all we need to try to clarify.
Yeah, so the clarification that I was given by Gallagher was if the Board of Commissioners would like to offer those benefits outside of what we currently offer, that we need to contact them, tell them what we want to. They will work up the proposal, and then we would have to you would have to adopt a policy to do that.
But it's my understanding in the past that he has something already in place with other municipalities. Can we find out what that is so we have it, if we're even going to entertain it, to see what it's, if he's doing it for any other municipalities?
Oh, I know it.
So you want me to reach out and ask them for, so I need to know exactly what I'm asking them for though, because, so is the board looking, I don't
We're
understand,
just entertaining
right, so
this
there's,
domestic partner.
okay, so there's very different definitions of what domestic partners are throughout in different avenues and things. So I think you're going to have to define to an extent what you're looking to cover.
I think Ed's asking you to just ask them what they currently have.
If any other municipalities
Don't- I mean,
offer
don't
it,
give them parameters, just say, what do you currently have that addresses domestic partnership?
Right. That's it. But
did he
it-
indicate if any other municipalities were doing that, offering that? When you spoke to them or whoever you spoke with there?
Well, the information that was given to us was a law from the city of Philadelphia, and they said absolutely the city of Philadelphia had passed a law on this.
Right.
And they said that it's not common, but if you're interested in doing this, we can work up a proposal.
Okay. So that's
See
probably why
what
you got
is.
it, because you work at the airport,
Right.
Ed. So, yeah.
But
School district has one.
and I couldn't find like I said, I have it because I'm up there, but I couldn't find if there was any guidelines to ours.
Would it be possible to get a copy of the school district's policy on it?
Yeah, I'll ask.
Okay.
Well, Gallagher would have it.
Yeah, I mean,
He does them all. Get it from him. Or the guideline part is what we're asking for.
yeah, but they have a list of what they're charging you for. Break it down.
Personally, I would like to have a better understanding about this before the board even entertains it, so. There's a
I
difference
just
between,
don't know how much I can or cannot say publicly, so.
well, let's just end the conversation.
And you go ahead.
And we're done with that. The other thing I'd like to discuss, we've been talking about the road program all night. Big Parkway, we're starting to get some complaints from some of the businesses and stuff. It's our road.
I just want to know why we own that road.
Don't look at me.
But
I-
yeah,
I
it's
said
some,
the
it's
same
some
thing.
major potholes in that road.
Did you ever
Yeah,
hear
it's
that?
bad.
Did you ever hear Christmas past? This is sports past.
I think that a lot of the roads we complain about, we're taking to get more,
Well, the first,
liquid fuels money, but
Mm.
it's not working out.
Yeah.
well, the first clarification is, I'm getting conflicting start dates about the 322 project, so. My understanding, it's not, that section that's supposed to get all repaved through the 322 project, that's not starting until when, 2025? So, we got another 2 years to go, so. Personally, if we have the money to make some patchwork there, I don't have a problem doing it, but
We have a bid package that's been ready. We're just waiting to determine what funding can be utilized for that bid package. It's only for phase one of Creek Parkway. Most of those pipes are old corrugated metal pipe. It's deteriorated to a point where we've talked about it at our public works meetings. We put the bid package together. There are areas where the maintenance guys are going out and putting stone in just to maintain that area. So our last, Putt and I had a conversation
Ain't some of it
last week.
something to do with Pico? We got something to do yet?
Pico, actually, there's several areas where Pico has bored their gas line through our storm sewer. After waiting almost 2 years for them to come back to us, we determined that we put the package together. We're going to tell them this is when the contractor's working and they're going to have to relocate because they're in our township right of way. So that's the way it's going to work once we know what.
What's the
funding-
cost estimate of the phase one job?
You're going to ask me that night.
Ballpark.
I want to say it was about 600,000. It's probably about 800,000 now with the costs and,
I know it was in the sixes.
yeah,
Before, 2 years ago.
right. And
Like she's
and with-
saying, I'm sure it's more.
stone and the pipe has gone astronomical.
How do we not have any kind of maintenance agreement with the development back there and we take over the roads? How do we not protect ourselves for this?
Well,
You're talking phase one, $600,000. That's our.
I mean, they are,
one-year
it is
I mean, I
common
think
that
that's a
there's
moot
a,
point now. I
Yeah.
mean, we can't
Yeah.
go back.
Nothing we did, but it's our problem.
I mean, it is common in these, I mean, it's because it's not necessarily like a park. It's a lot of little separate areas. So it is common that they're public roads. I mean, the one thing you could look at is that those properties change ownership quite frequently, and they provide probably the most substantial amount of concentrated value in the entire township. So if we were to look up, over the years, what they give us, what we get from property transfers over there, I mean, you could justify using money, like tax dollars or, real estate transfer tax dollars for that. The issue is with the project as big as $800,000, it means that we're going to have conversations about wish list projects and other projects and say, if this is going to be something to get done, other things are going to have to get pushed off.
As a matter of fact, my conversation with Putt last week is we have the list. You have a copy of the list of all the various stormwater projects. And what we are going to do is provide you what we feel are priority projects, things that we think need to be done for various reasons. And then the board can decide from those projects what you want done. And we've got to figure out how we're going to fund them.
But the problem is, like George said, this one will take the place of 4 or 5.
You're right. You're right.
You know what I mean? We're gonna have to eat 4 or 5 to do this one.
So Putt and I were going to actually sit down this week. Unfortunately, the week got a little convoluted because of I pulled out my back, so I hadn't been in work. But I'm hoping that next week we'll sit down, go through the list, and come up with some items that we feel are really necessary. We've got some issues that are maintenance issues that need to be taken care of sooner than later.
If we have it by the 19th, that would be beneficial for our planning
do that.
session.
I just want to make a correction. When I said the portion that the 322 was going to pave, I was indicating behind the Walmart and not necessarily where Commissioner Baca was talking about is right off the 322 at the entrance. It is, but it's not the it's not the entirety of it.
Sooner or later, we got, I mean, we haven't touched it. Really. I mean, some of the complaints are legitimate, is all I'm saying. We're gonna have to start addressing. We could do short-term stuff, I mean, just so, but I just wanted to get it out here, so we gotta start addressing.
Lisa, we do have about $50,000 in liquid fuels funds from last year. Would it be possible to look at the road and see if there's a section that could be paved that wouldn't interfere with this project?
Yeah, I think that actually could happen. The other part of this is I quite frankly think that PICO has some culpability in this, and we ought to be sitting down with Michelle Garrity to see what kind of reimbursement we can get, because they are just going to relocate their line. We as the township will be responsible to replace the pipe and do all the restoration. So I believe that that's something that we will need to discuss with PICO.
Thank you, everybody. Anything else, Joe? Anything to be brought to the attention of Commissioner Biacco? Yeah, yes, you did. just save a little bit for the firemen, that's all I'm asking. But anyway, we'll move on to my report. The reports will be on for next week. The emergency management reports in the folder. The relief audits are in 2 out of the 3. I'm sure the other one's getting audited as we speak. They're on a different cycle, so they're the lucky ones this year. The Boothman Town Center, as we said, we got the resolution for next week to vote on. As we said, it's a plan, it's a wish list, it's a lot of ideas. Hopefully we could include the new restaurant on Chi Avenue in Galbraith there and try to work some things out over there to start doing some upgrades and work with them and get some outdoor dining stuff and like that so people could see we're moving on the Boothman Town Center. I'd like to set up a meeting one time with Al, Federico, Lisa, just with some concerns on the intersection of McKay and Chi Avenue and some of the signage of the Wawa. People are still coming out, and I know I can't control people, but still making left-hand turns into Wawa. I think the sign might need to be moved back a little or something. They're coming on from Chi Avenue, making a left to get into it, coming out of the Wawa, making a left going the other way. So it's not a win-win situation, but I would like to maybe get some suggestions on McKay Avenue about don't block it or put the markings in the front of the intersection. Because what I do notice is if people are in between McKay Avenue and Chi, people are allowing other people to get through. So it's moving and traffic is moving. We always did have volume at 4, 5, 6 o'clock at night, and Putt was looking at the lights or the motion lights or the solar lights for the signs and the crosswalk. I think that would do nice, but I just want to get some ideas to throw it to them. I did see the ponding on McKay Avenue, and they're working with that. So other than that, have we come up with anything with the sign that the Heart and Soul or the library wants to put out there? Have we done a 811 call yet to make sure nothing's getting dug down into there for their thermometer?
My understanding is that hasn't been.
So we're not really doing anything. Okay.
What kind of sign are we putting out there? I think I was not present at that one meeting that it was discussed, but
They were talking about putting up a thermometer sign showing the progress of fundraising, which was in the books last month or the month before, I believe last month. And we told them first off they had to hold up because we don't have possession of it. Secondly, we want to come up with some type of guidelines so that we don't have every
individual
Joe
requested.
Smith and
Right.
everybody
I'm
else.
opposed to putting any kind of sign.
It's supposed to be recreational.
Memorial.
Well,
That's my.
we did talk about a memorial. It's, but all right. I was just wondering. So other than that, does anybody have anything for me?
Just the Boothman Town Center, Ed. I mean, I believe you guys put a lot of hard work into it. But my understanding still is that it's a conceptual plan and an idea. So I don't know if we adopt it, if we'll be just adopting some conceptual plan still, or is it something concrete? But now, as indicated when the presentation was here, I think a great opportunity for you is to concentrate on Meeting House and Chi Avenue, where Don's and Wawa and hairdressing places, and try to develop that area to get better parking in and walkability. I think that'd be a fantastic win.
Well, that's part of that was mentioned in the grant with
For you.
community parking. One part was to, like George was saying, the Act 135, we gave the one blighted property on Second Avenue to the county. It's a small lot that's right there on Second Avenue since there is no parking over there by Don's and everything and stuff like that. You're right. And that's something, I mean, I'll let you finish because there was something else for George I want to look into that was just brought out from the DVRPC. It's another grant for transportation and everything and economic development. And that was part, I don't know if I need this grant for, the recommendation in the study was an impact study. Right. April something, yeah. Well, yeah, this is, yeah, I just opened it up today. It's a DCDI, like you said, the grant from, it says April 27th is the deadline for the applications. But can that, impact study that was recommended from Blue Wall Avenue and all that in the town center be part of this grant? Okay.
Would you mind if I did like a concept plan there and it shows you what I think would be good?
Yeah, I have no problem with it.
Would you mind if I work with, Brian Siddell? to come up
Yeah,
with a plan?
Brian has his, matter of fact, I talked to Brian about this before the thing and, his follow-up conversation, like I said, I didn't want to get deep into it, was the master plan existing zoning regulations and the future amendment of zoning regulation. And that was that was all the recommendations in this plan. And yeah, we would go to Brian and say, hey, he has it here as a master plan. I would also suggest we divide the town center into two areas. This was the concept that they had in this, in the plan to say, hey, what is our next step? How do we get to this next step? And I reached out to Brian and I had this, I'll send this to you, is his suggestions on what to do next. I understand what you're saying, but it's just, it's a plan. It's something that,
You just want to be careful you don't go down the planning rabbit hole, right? So if the plan recommends doing another plan, which recommends doing another plan, because the people don't see the plans, people see the construction projects.
right.
So if it might be, if you're really looking for people to recognize it as the town center, you might say pivot from doing another plan right now and say, what would be a physical change that could take place in that area that we could do so that people see that there's a improvement happening. You know what I mean?
Well, there's your good point. You start with the new Mexican restaurant. That's in part of the town center. That's the improvements you want to try to start. And if that's the start of saying, hey, what's our recommendations on the overlay for that whole area? And like Brian said, and I'll send a letter out to everybody I just threw it to Brian to say, hey, what do you think? And if that's what Mike wants to try to do, I have no problem. I mean, the more input to try to, and I understand exactly what you're saying, George, and this plan I stated from day one was not all the way up to Child Avenue to I-95. It grew that big, and you're right, the town center is the town center, and if we implement just over by Don's and we go up towards Gareth Avenue before the bridge and a little down Meeting House Road by Don's and a little further up by the old Wawa, and that'd be one section. But if you have these people coming in, that's where you start with. So, I mean, I don't know what else we could have done with the recommendation of this plan. And I don't think anybody's jumping into plan after plan after plan. These are just strictly recommendations of the ideas of, and then it's up to us to implement whatever we need to do to get it bits and pieces done. I'm fine. Anything else? Now we need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.